So you have done your picture here and you've written your notes on how experience shapes you. But I want to take you now into this in more detail, slow it down even more and take you into more in depth so that you understand why people get so triggered and what you can do about it. So the experience wheel says that you have something happen. Then the first thing you do is you ask yourself, what just happened? That's the first question that comes to mind. And then the one that comes pretty quick after it is, why did that happen? And you can see that it's already shifting into some kind of interpretive thing because your next question is, well, what does this mean? And then pretty quick, what have I learned from this? And what does this mean going forward? Now, friends, these 5 questions that I've kind of come up with helping us to slow this down can happen in nanoseconds. People can come to a conclusion on things very quickly. Or sometimes it may take weeks or maybe months to come to a firm conclusion. But when we do come to a belief, that is when emotions kick in. And we generalize the interpretation into a belief. And you know a person is expressing a belief when words come out of their mouth like always, and you never, and you don't ever. This is indicating the emotion that's coming out that's surrounded a belief somewhere. And when that emotion is there, tied to a belief, it really shapes your choices big time. So you need to notice here in this understanding here that when we put these things together, they become a little story or a little narrative. In fact, when someone is emotional about something, ask them a few questions and say, no, how come you're responding this way? Or can you tell me why you're responding like that? And often a story pops out. They will tell you of an experience and the interpretation and belief that goes along with that. And friends, we have hundreds of these narratives that are in our subconscious, and they are like a library out of which we draw our wisdom to make choices. But you'll notice in this diagram here that it's actually not the experience that shapes us. It's the interpretation that shapes us. So experience is not the primary thing. In fact, it is how we process our experiences. This is why 2 people can go through very similar experiences and have very different emotional responses to it because they process it differently. And when these experiences are intense, they have strong emotions attached to them. And so when someone is going through life and they experience something that reminds them of something that happened before, it triggers the emotion and all that went with that first experience. And that's why they often will overreact to something that happens when it's not really commensurate to what just happened, but it might be a valid one for what did happen. And so when you're going through a conflict and you're noticing yourself getting emotional, it's important that you manage yourself, hold yourself back in. Don't jump to conclusions. You need to postpone judgment about whatever's happening here because you might be triggered by a past experience that is not accurately connected to this one. It just reminds you of that one. And the same thing with other people. When they overreact, be sure there is an experience that is being revived within them. So look for understanding beyond the emotion. Look for deeper issues. Ask them good questions. Invite them to share a little bit more and listen well. And folks, when you do this, it might help you not get triggered yourself with emotional reaction to their emotional reaction. This is where conflict just spirals into these emotional outbursts. It doesn't need to be if you are aware of what's going on in you and in them. In the next video, we'll look at the different levels of conflict. Not all conflict is the same, and you need to understand where you're at and how to respond appropriately. So this next one, friends, is really, really enlightening. Look forward to talking to you about it there.